the students who are applying to come to the United States, they're reading the news, man, and they're all saying to themselves, oh, okay, I can't be doing any of that stupid stuff, man. I really got to be on the up and up.
Maybe not the marijuana crime, because I don't know if I'm wrong, but I thought marijuana possession was decriminalized here in Pennsylvania.
No, hey, hang on. Penn State students, marijuana is not decriminalized in the state of Pennsylvania, my friends, okay? So there's a way in which we're a little bit lenient, but like, in a way, people, you could argue they kind of got off easy. Could you argue that?
It seems to me that it is highly overrepresented, the percentage of crimes in this context that are committed out of necessity. It's like you're an international student. Oftentimes, like your parents are doing all right.
If your parents can spend the money on tuition that international students' parents are spending, you don't need to steal a Snickers bar, man.
Yeah.
And one was got deported because of shoplifting, and she did it intentionally. I will say that because she did it twice or thrice, and that was a good thing that she got deported, to be honest.
They're not just like sitting on our couch eating our food.
Yeah.
No, with these international students, the people who are paying tuition, they are members of our society in all but name.
They have not pled guilty, have not been convicted of a crime, and so they are still presumed innocent, and then being deported anyway?
Well, here's the thing.
If you saw someone shoplifting a Snickers bar, what would you do about it?
Do you think it's fair that like international students have to tread so lightly? Like they came here, they applied to be here, they're part of the Penn State community. Like, do you think the university has like a right to like protect them from the deportation in a way, or?
How many people in here would largely echo what he said? Like, listen, man, it's a crime. You commit a crime. Like, you gotta, like, raise your hands really high. I just want to see how many people would largely echo.
So my question is that do you think that people who are on visas should be quote unquote like more scared or just more like just aware of committing crimes than a person who is born in the United States?
Yeah. Do you think people who are guests of the United States, who are here on a visa, right? Do you think that they really need to be more aware, right? You really should be more aware. You got to be more aware than people who are born here, who are not here on visas, as an example, right? Is that, yeah. How about that? It's like you're walking, if you're a guest here, you're walking on, you better be aware of what's going on.
Like, yeah, because from my point of view, you're another Penn State student here, but you're also like not an American citizen.
You're a guest
right?
of the United States.
Even though you're here to learn, like in the eye of the law, you might not be seen that way.
Okay.
And then you might be punished differently.
Okay.
I mean, clearly with this. But
Yeah. Okay.
now, should it be that way? I don't know. But
Okay.
I think I'm looking at it through like a view of like an American going to another country. Cause
Yep.
I just saw something yesterday that this social media influencer is facing like 25 years in jail in South Korea for, I don't know exactly what he did, but it was something like a statue.
He's an idiot, though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
He did some really annoying stuff.
But
okay.
If like
He's
an
probably
American,
not going to get 25 years, but go ahead.
And if an American goes to another country, I think we should be aware of their laws more because sometimes they're like, the penalty and like the judicial system is different in every country. So if you're not aware, then you could definitely have a bigger target on your back. And a lot of people are looking at you differently if you're not from like if you're from a different country.
Yeah.
I feel like that's for everywhere.
Also,
not just America.
By the way, another thing is, my guess is that, and this goes to what he said, my guess is that the students who are applying to come to the United States starting next August, they're reading the news, man, and they're all saying to themselves, oh, okay, I can't be doing any of that stupid stuff, man. I really got to be on the up and up. So like they're going to learn from these folks, and they're not going to do certain things, you know. But here's the thing that like, okay, that wasn't the case. If I can shoplift, if I get shoplifting, if I get caught, okay, I'm going to have to deal with the consequences. But I'll never get sent home. But okay, but in the future, it's like, yeah. So here's my question. Is that a good thing?
I mean, I think that if there is this rule, like, it's good to be on guard if you're the person who the rule is affecting. So in that sense, yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that these folks didn't know, but for him, he doesn't matter because they still broke the law.
Yeah, I think on that point, like, I think, yeah, it's pretty easy not to shoplift, right? I don't know what they shoplift. Maybe some of them were actually genuinely shoplifting because they didn't have money to get stuff, but let's assume that's not for most of the cases. That being said, though, again, I don't think that deporting solves any problem that caused the shoplifting. And, like, I think saying that it's kind of, like, their guest status makes the crime worse. So I think even to say that if you shoplift as a international student versus as a United States student, maybe the punishment could be, like, worse, but, like, deporting seems like much worse.
It just seems like a lot to you.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, it could be that they are going back to their family, and it could be that they're going back and they can get education somewhere else, but it could also not be, which it's not the job of the store or whoever they stole from to worry about all that.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. That's right.
Yeah, maybe it is the job of the person who's deporting them.
Or it's the job of the person who shoplifted or whatever. But yeah, okay. So someone on the stream is saying, yeah, but some crimes are crimes out of necessity. They're not just opportunistic. I mean, let's not assume it's not a Snickers bar. Maybe it's an international student who's really on the out. Like they don't have money for food or whatever. I don't know. What about that? No, because they're always going to be, you go to the food bank, you always go, mango. There's always a place you can get food.
Who's paying for the diversion programs? Is that funded by the university or those government?
No,
funded?
that's a Center County and then the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
And they mostly pay for themselves, for example. So, for example, it always involves paying a fine, almost always involves paying a fine or court costs and that kind of thing. So,
I guess my question was just going to be, do they have to do the rehabilitation here, or if they're able to do rehabilitation in their whatever country it is that they're from?
No, it would have to be here. Yeah, you got to do it here. I mean, could you go back home and do the diversion program and then come back? Like, okay, I completed it.
Yeah, supposedly, yeah.
No, because mostly you're going to have people who are sort of watching them as they're going through this, you know? Like parole, probation, that kind of thing, but somebody who's part of that.
I just kind of wanted to circulate back to something that was being talked about before and play devil's advocate a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So growing up and when I started traveling by myself, like the first thing my parents told me is like, don't break the law in a foreign country, right? Because you don't know how the laws operate over there, and you're visiting and you have to respect that culture. And I mean, you can get in a really horrible situation by breaking the law in a foreign country.
In some places, for sure, man.
Yeah, so circulating back to what was being talked about South Korea, and I know a lot of countries, like, if you break the laws of foreigner, there are very strict countries where you could face really, really serious consequences. So I wanted to ask, do you think maybe like these students, maybe not the marijuana crime, because I don't know if I'm wrong, but I thought marijuana possession was decriminalized here in Pennsylvania.
No, hey, hang on. Penn State students, marijuana is not decriminalized in the state of Pennsylvania, my friends, okay?
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that, so
okay.
I was just asking. But maybe don't you think, just for example, for a serious crime like a DUI where you could have effectively killed someone, and I mean I agree, shoplifting you shouldn't be shoplifting. Like you're taking property that's not yours without paying it. So I just wanted to ask, do you think maybe like just these students getting sent back to their homes, do you think they maybe just got off easy?
Yeah, in a way.
Compared to,
right? In a way, yeah. What do you think about that? You could argue that they kind of got off easy.
Yeah, like instead of
get really being charged with serious crimes. Yeah, because we have a certain leniency here, right? I mean, shoplifting is a crime. It's punishable by X. But you're not. We have this thing. It's your first time. It's all right. Like, okay, we'll do this diversion program. It's all good, and don't do it again. And if you do it a second time, then it's like, well, it's going to be a little harder. But like, okay, don't do it a third time. You know what I mean? And so there's a way in which we're a little bit lenient. But like, in a way, people, you could argue they kind of got off easy. Could you argue that?
I mean, I think that you could definitely see it like that, especially like you're saying, like if they are going back to like a family and they have all this like community and stuff, like when they go back home, definitely it could be seen. Because assuming like if they're going back home, that means they're not paying any fines, they're not serving any community service. Like if they served only a part-time in the diversion program, and then they go back home to whatever, like assuming there's like things at home to support them, help them get into new school or whatever, like even a place for them to live, like assuming all those things, yeah, you could be like,
but you go
that
back,
was more lenient.
wait, hang on, who's an international student? Bro, you are? If you get sent back home, you get caught shoplifting, right? Let's say it's you. Where are you from?
I'm from India.
From India?
Yeah.
Okay, you get caught shoplifting. You get sent back home in India.
Yeah.
Just think about just you.
Yeah.
What do your parents say? What's your family say? What's the community say?
My parents are kind of strict, so like my father always tell me like not to like even carry someone else's stuff. Just so like it's as a precaution, and like for obvious reasons, like if you compare, my father spent a lot of money, like to be honest, like 300-400 grand just so I can like study here, more than any other in-state student is actually paying. So I guess like, yeah, for obvious reasons, my community will be like type of asking me questions every single day. That's
so
why
your
I
whole
did
community.
that.
First off, they lose all the money.
Yeah.
From
like
if you can't
penny.
finish your classes this semester, so they lose that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
And being like I will be a senior student like next semester, so I guess like it's a huge amount, like literally more than half of my college tuition.
Yeah. So for you then, so you can imagine it's very similar for most of these students. Yeah. It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
The fact that people get sent back home in shame, right? The financial cost, the one thing after another, boom, it's huge. So like, I want you to just think about that, and then now, and I'm not trying to change your mind or anything. I'm just want to know, like, what do you think when you hold that?
I think as an international student, it would be like extremely important to understand the consequences of even seemingly small crimes, so that you basically like understand the gravity of the situation you're in. You just tread lightly, you know? Because I mean, it seems to me that it is highly overrepresented, the percentage of crimes in this context that are committed out of necessity. It's like you're an international student. Oftentimes, like your parents are doing all right.
If your parents can spend the money on tuition that international students' parents are spending, you don't need to steal a Snickers bar, man.
Yeah. Like, dude, every time I see like a hypercar in State College, like it's never like some just like white guy. It's like, just don't steal stuff. It's like very rarely the case that you have to steal stuff. Just stop it, please.
Okay, that's fair.
Can I actually add something towards that?
Yeah.
So for me, like, to be honest, I was discussing it with my friends. They are also international students here, and they were like, it's better for me to like do service hours or like get in jail for 24 hours and then come outside and like complete my degree rather than just get deported from the US. And it's kind of like to be honest, a controversial decision, but they were like, it's better for me in that way because my parents spent a lot of money. And also I think they like, you showed 22 people who got deported, and one was like my friend, like two were my friend, and one was like got deported because of shoplifting, and she did it intentionally. I will say that because she did it twice or thrice, and that was a good thing that she got deported, to be honest. You got deported. Yeah.
Wait, she did it. She shoplifted twice.
She shoplifted twice, and not even like a small amount of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a good thing. And on the second pair, like,
wait,
if I talk about
hang on a second. Hang on, dude. You ready? So someone shoplifts, not once, but twice. Feels good about it. It's like, yeah, I got away. I got whatever this thing is. I got this shirt or whatever. And they don't care. They're not even feeling ashamed about it. Now what do you think?
Going into another country, you should be, regardless of the consequences.
Yeah.
You should be cautious about what you do. So the fact that she did that without any second,
Once. She did it not once, but twice.
Twice.
And didn't feel really even bad about it.
Really makes a difference.
That makes a
Yeah.
difference for you. Okay.
Coincidentally, last night I was on call with one of my friends from back home, and he was telling me about how one of his friends, who's an international student at the school he goes to, literally just got their visa revoked 3 days ago for an unpaid parking ticket.
Ah.
An unpaid parking ticket.
Okay.
Now, earlier somebody had said that it's not a human right to be in this country, but I believe that human rights don't even take borders into consideration at all.
Yeah.
That being said, if we're thinking that the punishment should fit the crime, like where do we stand on this situation where a parking ticket can send somebody back home in shame, like we were talking about earlier?
Okay.
When this is kind of their way out.
Okay.
You know?
All right, here we go. How about that? How many of you have had parking tickets and you didn't even know? You found out later you had a parking ticket? Like you didn't even know. It's just like, okay.
One thing I wanted to talk about is when we call immigrants guests, they're not just like sitting on our couch eating our food.
Yeah.
No, with these international students, they're people who are paying tuition. They're paying, for food. They're buying things in the United States. They're paying taxes. They are members of our society in all but name.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we bring down the hammer on them for like a parking ticket. We don't hold our own citizens to that kind of standard. How are we gonna give that to somebody who is contributing actively?
Okay. So there's a question. If we're not really holding these standards so high for citizens, like really intense, man. Like if you don't pay the parking ticket, you really get hammered. There's another point. People are coming here and you are paying tuition. If you have a job, you're going to pay taxes. You're going to do all sorts of things. So there's a way in which, to set aside and treat people so differently than the citizens is something to think about, whether that's fair or not fair.
There's another thing to talk about with that is, what is the point of deportation? What is the point of immigration? Like when we deport people like students, people who work, we as a society are losing something. We're losing somebody who is giving us a service, who's producing a product, who is doing good.
Yeah, but there are a lot of other people who would want to come here who wouldn't break any laws. So that's the other side. So it's like, well, we'll send them home, we'll deport them, but then we bring back as somebody else who's like going to follow the law and not get a DUI or pay their parking tickets or whatever the case is.
Yeah, but it's also important to note that immigrants commit crimes at a statistically lower rate than
for
citizens.
sure. No, people have the idea that when you have high immigration rates, you have high crime rates, and we know across the board immigrants tend to commit crimes at much lower rates than citizens. And that's pretty true everywhere, actually. Yeah, including undocumented immigrants, by the way. Well, aside from being undocumented, you're committing a crime just by breathing, I guess. But all right, next one.
Yeah, I was just going to basically highlight that point as well. I didn't really agree with the heavy emphasis that these people are just like guests in America.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like America has always thrived off of immigrants or just people from other countries. Like, whether it's the laptops we use, like that's from exploiting other countries and their resources. And just throughout history, we've always America has been able to climb and reach the level of success where we can sit here and enjoy this nice education because of immigrants. So I don't think it's really a question about like what they did, like is it how bad of a crime it is. It's really just how America treats its immigrants, and overall this is like a really sad story.
Yeah, not only that, but immigrants that historically, including, by the way, all white people in here, if you had your relatives came here from Europe in the late 18th century and early 19th century, immigrants who were exploited for their labor, like really exploited, treated very poorly and exploited for the labor. So,
and then another point I wanted to make, kind of going off what the guy in the camo hoodie said, was like, what is the point of deportation? Because in these cases, right, the 22 students, they already were put in this diversionary program. Like, there was some consequence. It's not like they got away with it by saying, oh, don't do it again. Like, they're already in a program that's meant to re-educate them or kind of serve some form of justice to have them contribute to society in a positive manner. So then if they're already being, for lack of better wording, rehabilitated, what is the point of deporting them? What are you actually achieving by doing that?
Well, does anyone have it? What do you think the administration, the government is doing what are we achieving by doing that? Take a perspective of the current administration.
I'd say it's like weeding out the evildoers to bring in better students is what they might think. Now, do I see it that way? No.
Well, yeah, you could say it. You could say it a little bit different. Anyone want to say it a little bit differently? Not the evildoers, but.
I mean, I think it generally is about like having more like strict like guidelines for immigration.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I do think, just one note on that, I think even if you are going to say, okay, we're going to deport international students that do X, Y, or Z, I think there's like a principle of like transparency that you have to follow. So it's like, okay, this is what we're going to do, but you have to like let people, you're going to do that before you start doing that.
Yeah.
So I think like saying that you're going to deport people and then deporting people is better than just deporting people.
Well, but maybe we're just in this space right now where we're learning quickly. Like other people coming to the U.S. are learning. Oh man, don't break any laws. There's a new sheriff in town, so to speak, right? His name's Donald Trump, and they're moving forward and like, okay, we're going to be really, really strict.
Yeah.
Do you remember the conversation we had about Korea, Japan, and China? And remember, you go to Korea, you don't eat food on the subway. If you eat food on the subway, someone is going to tell you, is very likely to tell you, hey, stop eating food, or report you to the subway police. And the subway police they're not going to arrest you, but they're going to tell you you can't eat food on the subway. I mean, they're just things. They're rules, man. Just follow the rules. And if you don't know what the rules are, then you're going to learn. But everyone knows you don't shoplift.
So I think we got to get one thing straight. That is, immigrants are the backbone of this country. They make up nearly every job that Americans don't want to do. Like, how many of you want to work in a mushroom farm? I'm from Kennett Square, and they make up about 50% of the population there. How many of you are going to work in a mushroom farm 12 hours a day for minimum wage?
Basically nobody in this room.
Basically nobody. And so they do these really important jobs that we don't give them enough credit for. So let's just get that set from the onset. And the second thing is that we have presumed innocence here. We, under the rules that you laid out, they are not proven guilty. They have not pled guilty. They have not been convicted of a crime. And so they are still presumed innocent and then being deported anyway?
Well, here's the thing. When you go into a diversion program, you're basically acknowledging, hey, I can take this to trial. I can go all the way. And then I can have my day in court, right? I can do that. Or I can just take a little side road right here and say, you know what, I'm just going to apply for this program. So when you apply for the program, in a certain sense, you might be saying, well, I've been charged with this. They said I did it. It doesn't look, even though I didn't do it, it doesn't look very good for me. It's possible that would be the case. And so I'm just going to take this diversionary program. Okay? Or I could say, no, I'm absolutely not guilty. I'm going to go all the way. Okay, well, that's a different story. But everyone in this case took a diversionary program. So, yeah. So you're kind of, in a way, you're kind of acknowledging, I'm not going to take my chances in a court, right? You're not acknowledging your guilt. You're not standing on your innocence, but you're sort of right there. But nonetheless, you're saying, immigrants make up the country, man. Let's not forget this. There's this war on immigration now, or a serious, maybe not a war, but we're really looking at things very seriously. So how strict is the law enforcement for U.S. students and citizens? Do they face similar consequences for, let's say, a parking ticket? No, not at all. I mean, not in this case. You don't at all. Yeah. An unpaid parking ticket. Yeah. Go ahead, bro.
I'd just like to ask the gentleman who suggested that students on student visas deserve a judicial imbalance for the fact that they're here as guests of the country. What would you
Wait, what do you mean by judicial imbalance?
Well, obviously, if you're a citizen, you can get off with a lot of these things with a slap on the wrist. So I'd just like to ask If you saw someone shoplifting a Snickers bar, what would you do about it? If this is such an affrontment to the fabric of our society, if you saw someone shoplifting a Snickers bar, what would you do about it to back up those words?
Okay, so hang on. Before you get to an answer to the question, what you're saying is you're wondering whether this is really these particular crimes, the DUI thing sets aside for a second, but are these particular crimes really capable of fracturing the solidarity, the fabric of the social system, of society, right? Like, are they really, really weakening the structure of American culture, American society? That's fundamentally that's a really good question. And in a way, it's kind of like the question of, you can only police people to the degree to which they want to be policed. You can have a million laws, but like people got to follow the laws. And so what we want are people to follow the rules, people be kind to one another, and we want social solidarity. We want people to work together. We want to not have conflict, and we don't want to have a lot of disorganization in society. So that's why we have laws. We want people to do what they say they're going to do and what we need them to do. So when people do these things, you're asking, are we really weakening the fabric of society when people commit these crimes? And then I would say, well, yeah, when lots of people commit these crimes, when a couple of people do, it doesn't really matter, but when lots of people do, like in this classroom, some of you cheat. Some of you gave the attendance codes to your friends, and you got caught. And so there'd be consequences to that. But if we didn't check on you, if we didn't do a mandatory selfie in here, there would be, and we just allowed you to send the attendance codes to your friends, there would be 100 or 150 less people in the room on a nice day like this, because you'd just be sending the attendance codes to your friends who are on the hub lawn partying or playing hacky sack or whatever people do on the hub lawn. But we don't. And so, but it's not going to really change the class that much, but it has an impact on the class. Yeah. I'm not going to have him answer your question. That's a good question though, bro. I'm going to tell you, that's a really good question. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Hi. So we're talking about like Penn State students, right? And like we talk about we are and belonging, and like going off of like what we've been saying, like for me, like college is more than just an experience about academics. Like people come here, people make mistakes left and right. If you brought up like statistics on that board of every student who has committed those crimes, it would be a whole lot more than just 22. So like for me, like, do you think it's fair that like international students have to tread so lightly? Like they came here, they applied to be here, they're part of the Penn State community. Like, do you think the university has like a right to like protect them from the deportation in a way? Or like there's like a lot with that, but like I just like go back to like the like we are saying and like the story of that and how that came about. Like I just think there's a lot there.
Well, let me just say this though.
But I also add on to that, just because you're being deported doesn't mean you're no longer a Penn State student, as I mentioned before. That's why a lot of the students who are deported are going to end up doing world campus or whatnot. So it's not really like Penn State thing. It's more of a legal mandate.
Yeah, there's nothing Penn State can do at this point. But you're right. I mean, there's a community. So for you, when you look around the room and you think, hey, there's a couple students in here who right now, international students who might find out tomorrow or the next day that they're getting deported because they didn't pay a parking fine or something like that. For you, what you're saying is, hey, no, we're a community here. Like I don't like that. Like that doesn't feel right to me. That feels like too extreme because there is a community thing. Yeah.
I just want to say I think it's kind of interesting, almost kind of who has the right to commit crimes. Like we have a president who's been convicted 34 times, who has been what I'm pretty sure is civilly convicted of rape, and who has pardoned the people who were convicted during the January 6th attempted insurrection. And I would say insurrection is, a far more violent and I would say worse crime than shoplifting or possessing marijuana.
Yeah.
And so I just think the differing standards are extremely telling.
Well, so for you, as someone, you look at that and say, yeah, I kind of, it feels like an unfair adjudication of laws in some ways. Okay, I will say, yeah, well, this is the world. Some money and power that goes a long way. Am I right, man? Money and power goes a long way to being able to avoid certain punishments for certain crimes. Hey, I just want to ask a question before I know we got to go. Bro, how many people in here would largely echo what he said? Like, listen, man, it's a crime. You commit a crime. Like, you got to, raise your hands really high. I just want to see how many people would largely echo. That's a fair amount of people. So, listen, wait, keep raising. It's a lot of men. It's like you're all men. It's all men. There's one woman. All right. Dude, what's with men, bro? Is this a man thing? So, by the way, if you're watching the stream, the idea here is that students raise their hand who agree that, you commit a crime, doesn't matter what the crime is, you have an obligation, so you get deported. That's just what it is. That's now the law of the land. Maybe 60 people, 70 people raised their hand, and almost all of them were men. So I just want to say that. All right, y'all. Hey, good conversation. Hey, thanks to the volunteers.